Hey everyone, hey everyone. This is Ian Miller of the Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. Welcome. Tonight we're actually going to have some very special guests with us. The team members of Triple Threat Comics. Can you actually believe it? I actually get the core creative crew here, and I'm very excited to talk about what's going to happen with Triple Threat Comics going forward, how this company was actually formed, and what are our thoughts and dreams for future issues of our stories, and also if we're going to have more creative ideas for these two creators. So let's get to the business at hand. Our first guest is actually a School of Visual Arts graduate, a very good friend of mine. He's also the co-founder of Triple Threat Comics and the creator of his supernatural superhero story, Soul Racer. Please welcome Enrique. Please welcome Eric Hernandez.
Yeah, I'd go for Enrique as well. It's a great name. It's a
I
sexy
always
name.
fudge that.
It's
I
very
always
sexy.
fudge that up. I am sorry. I always fudge that up, sir. I apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's wonderful to be here. It's good to be here. This is actually my first podcast live. I've never, believe it or not, I've never done one of these things before. So
Really?
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we're going to have you on the show more often, dude. Since you are the co-founder of the comics.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm happy to be here, and yeah, really excited.
Okay. Well, let's bring on our next guest. I have called him the inker extraordinaire because he really, really is. I love this guy. We have tons of fun on just talking about nonsense, but also talking about our love for the industry and love the projects. He's actually the artist and writer of a lot of anthology series such as Stupendous, Horrendous, Not So Tales, Modern Mythology. He's also done a cover of Codename Hunter for me, issue 3, which is coming out soon. He's also the inker of Codename Hunter. He's also done a few art issues of Soul Racer, as I understand. Right, Eric?
Promo art.
So, yeah. So, please welcome Enrique Lopez.
Good
Welcome to the
evening
show, guys.
to all of
Yes.
I am
Welcome,
back.
welcome to the show, guys.
So this is a triple threat reunion. This is great.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's crazy. Uh, what's interesting is for folks who don't know this, we actually all three of us met at Eternal Con. I forget what this was in 2018 or 19. I'm not sure.
I think it's 18. Way
Yeah.
back.
Yeah,
Way back
18.
to the day.
Back in the days.
Yeah. When we were young and innocent.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's actually talk about the forming of Triple Threat Comics for a second. Eric, how exactly did we form Triple Threat Comics?
um, well, we both studied at School of Visual Arts.
Yep.
We had a course. I think it was writing for comics. Was it? I might be mistaken.
Yeah, it was one of those courses. Yeah.
Sort of, sort of forgetting. But no. One day I was just before class started, I was just doing my doodles. Just practicing and stuff. And then you sat next to me, and we were just talking about how independent comics were like growing, underground comics as well, and we're just talking about like
Yeah.
the reality of, because our dream was, or our goal was, Marvel or DC. Um, but
Yeah. Which is typical of every comic artist.
yeah, I mean it's the normal. But
Yeah. It's normal.
we were just thinking more reality, that I think the best route for us would be to go to the independent side in terms of
Yeah.
more freedom, own our own characters, collaborate with other different artists as well. So we said, hey, why don't we just form a small company called Triple Threat? You know, and so that's how it came to be. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you have to remember when we decided to do that, the indie comic community was not as big as it is now.
yeah,
It was
it wasn't
actually,
that big. Yeah.
yeah, it was just starting to come into its own, and we just said let's just do it because we certainly weren't going to get any calls from the big companies, so let's just do it.
No, it's funny you say that because before I even went to School of Visual Arts, I wasn't aware of underground comics or that independent comics existed. It was all about DC, Dark Horse, Marvel. Um, yeah, Image and Image Comics.
Yeah, yeah,
So when I went in there with a goal like, okay, I gotta do the best I can and hopefully prepare a portfolio during senior year and
yeah,
get a small gig or with Marvel or DC. Um, but the education at School of Visual Arts really opened my mind. It really changed me a lot. More respect and less interest in pursuing that goal for Marvel or DC because what the professors were like showing us was a different side of comics. It's not just about superheroes.
yeah,
It's about expressing yourself, or like having a dream and taking that dream that you have and creating a story, like different exercises, different disciplines. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is so cool. So I got more interested towards that. So yeah.
yeah. So that was the initial launching of Triple Threat Comics, and it was crazy, just how we just started and where we are now. Enrique, how did you get involved in Triple Threat Comics?
I'm still wondering that myself. How I get roped into this at the beginning. I'm minding my own business, and all of a sudden,
these two little.
what? Okay. All right. No, actually, it's I had to beg them, and they still are like, look, we'll put you in the group, but don't make a big deal out of it. But no, it came out to be that it was through the first promotional. You were like Eric wanted to do some promo work on Solely Razor, and he had these images. Which let's see if I just I don't know. This thing sometimes is like weird. So let me see if I can go to share screen. Let's see if we can actually. Let's see if this actually works. Now, of course, it's not going to work because it's all crap. Anyway, it's if you needed me to do, he asked me to do the image one. I believe it's of Jade. One was a Jade. There was one that had the combination of a battle between the villains, and then there were a whole other collage of the characters, and those are the three. Yeah, there we are. Oh, look, I don't need to do it myself. There we go. And that's the ones I inked originally. Yeah, the first ones there. Then we produced a few prints of those, and then at one time I was going to be the inker for Solely Racer, but now I ended up being the inker for Codename Hunter. So Eric's going to regret that for the rest of his life. I know he will. He's just doing on yours is going, I could have had him on mine. But anyway, we all have to live with what can I say?
So,
Man.
yeah, speaking of that, I do want you to start, if you can, the inks for I wanted you to do the inks for, because issues 1 through 6 was pretty much the origin, and I wanted you to take on the real stuff.
Oh, the real stuff.
The real stuff.
Ooh.
So that was the plan. So right now I just told you, revealed to you the plan.
So nice to be wanted.
Yeah.
How about that? Wow.
an impromptu announcement.
Yes.
Who knew? Who knew it was going to be this big? You could have done a bigger deal.
That is fantastic. So
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I'd love to do it. So it's going to be like
It's going to be awesome.
now we're going to have a triple threat.
It's going to be awesome.
No, and I gotta say something. It's such a. These two characters are so different. When I talk characters with Ian and Eric, their styles are so different. It's going to be interesting for me to work it because Ian has a much more open style in that it lets me work around, create some of work on the backgrounds and stuff. Now Eric makes sure there's no blank area available on any page. I paid for this page, there will be something on it. So it's like it is that way. The man he doesn't like white areas. No blank spaces on his book. So that's going to be a lot of nice work there. Those a lot of details everywhere. Every time he puts up a new image, it's like of a landscape, and we're like, oh my God.
I have to admit, even when I'm doing those pages, I'm like, what am I doing? I got to stop this. I can't. No.
Well, at least you actually draw into it because other people are like, they might leave it blank. Go, okay, now you fill it in with some kind of building. So we're like, what?
I mean it's interesting you say that because I remember one time in high school, there was a graphic arts teacher. Well, he was the assistant, and I drew the Spider-Man, and I'm like, "Or here's a Spider-Man." He's like, "Oh, you got to work on your anatomy. It's decent, but where's he swinging? Like, what's he interacting with? Like, why is this only a blank page? You got to add background. You got to add something for him to interact." So that stuck with me ever since that. They were talking about high school. So so that stuck to me.
Literally, man.
So.
It is there. I mean, every time I see you post about like this new page, I'm like, geez, it's like all over the place. The single panel is packed in, and it's great. So, the way I see it, that when people pay for your comic, and you're really getting your money's worth. There is art here, baby. There is work done. So
appreciate it.
We're not just like going out there and just throwing something out there. No, you're gonna get your big bang for your buck, definitely. So
definitely.
Yeah, that's the thing about True Other Comics. We really do care about the quality. We care about the quality of the story, the quality of the artwork, because we want to make sure that you guys have the best experience ever in comics. And I believe that firmly, which is why we make it our mission to actually write the comics as if we were writing movies. We can't have a bad movie.
Right.
Otherwise we won't make any money.
That's true.
Yeah.
So thanks, Eric, to know that. So I'll add that to my ever-growing.
I think I cured his allergies.
Yeah.
No, it's that. I think Ian should know about this. So like a few weeks ago, I was like going through one of my phases of depression, and like all artists go through. We go through this uncertainty moment.
Yeah.
Thinking, and why don't people want to work with me, or what's going on, And my wife just basically slapped me on my head. And like, what are you talking about? Have you even looked at your list lately? And I'm like, when do you have more time? And I'm looking at the list and I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do some 3 scripts. I gotta draw this one for Hernandez. I got a cover going on over here. So I'm like, oh, and I'm doing convention. Yeah, I think we don't need much more. let's hang it. Let's take it easy. No, and because sometimes I go through thinking that if I don't have a lot, that means I don't have anything to do. But what I have is pretty much I'm set for the rest of the year. And now with this, I'm definitely getting into next year. So I keep
yes.
And Ian is like, what up to? We're up to page 4, I think, right now on yours.
Yeah, I'm actually working on page 5 as we're speaking right now. so I can actually give that to you possibly the end of the night. So I can actually
Sure.
work on page 6. And I had to tell you, Enrique, I'm really impressed with the work you've done for the issue so far.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's pretty
It looks fantastic,
amazing.
and I really can't wait for people to actually look at this thing, and be able to buy it. I'm very excited.
All right, let's see if I can throw a teaser here very quick. Which one doesn't give away a lot? And okay, well, this actually is a pretty good page. That is like you can see a lot of the character work on it. I'm just gonna go like real quick, so we don't. There's no writing on it yet. So wait,
Yeah.
let me get the glitter off. There we go.
All right.
There we go. Now without the page, so.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
And there's still a lot of stuff I have to add in, but the thing is that I'm waiting for all the pages to be done so I can go back and
Yeah.
make sure everything will be equal, everything will look the same, because I'm doing them individually, and I know eventually I'll come back and say, okay, I want to add this to make sure this character's everything looks the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
Thing. So, but
Absolutely.
right now it's like I said, Ian is very clean, and it's there are a lot of details there that in the background they're going to be used in Photoshop. I know they're adding a lot of the blacks in there because I don't want to
Yeah.
use so much blacks on. Eventually, I can put it in there, but it's like one of the advantages of using the digitals today is that you can actually fade it in and out and making sure that the blacks don't combine too much. And things that we couldn't do back in the '80s, which it was all there. You hope for the best. So.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, so it's a lot of stuff can be done digitally later and stuff. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Eric, let's talk about the creation of Solo Racer for a second here. How exactly did you come up with this concept?
So I was 7 years old. When I was 7,
Oh, we're going back that far.
yeah, when I was 7, I was, still playing with Ninja Turtle toys and whatnot. So one day, there was a box under my dad's bed, and it was one of those big rectangular boxes with it's like a map box. It was like framed.
Mm.
So being a curious little boy, I went under the bed, pulled the box out, and I'm like, what's in here? When I opened it, changed my life because there was DC Comics, and at that time, believe it or not, I never picked up the comic book. Yeah, at that age, never picked up a comic book. I picked up books from the library, but not a comic book. So the first two comic books I was introduced was The Death of Superman and Nightfall, when
Ooh,
Bane broke Batman's back. Now,
classics.
before realizing this, to me, these superheroes were invincible. They were no one could beat them. They were, who could beat Superman? I mean, come on, he's the superhero. He's the hero.
That is a big Blues Boy Scout. That's what he is.
But having seen that comic book, open it and seeing how Doomsday, the ultimate villain, was just destroying him. I'm like, oh my. So I was, let's put it, I was traumatized. Same thing for Batman. Same thing for Batman. You got this big guy takes Batman and breaks his back. I'm like, what in the world? So all that changed my perspective on superheroes forever. And then in high school, I think sophomore year, my friend introduced me to a comic book store called Midtown Comics in 42nd Times Square. And wow, I was just like, oh, so many comic books. I don't know what to choose. What's going on?
Yeah.
So I saw Spider-Man comics, and I was looking at them, and I'm like, this is cool. But then something else caught my attention. Spawn.
Todd McFarlane. Yeah.
Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I'm like, whoa, now this is a comic book. This is a comic book. So that's when I started to collect Spawn.
Mm.
But then I started to, take everything that I love that influenced me, the 90s cartoons like Gargoyles, Batman, the animated series.
Yeah.
Things I read, like EC Comics, Spawn. Took everything that I loved and influenced me. And then I just started writing my own superhero, which was Solar Racer. And I started writing that when I was 17 or 18 years old. So it was a story that was just evolving and developing until finally, sophomore year of college at School of Visual Arts. That summer, I drew it. I finished the script and I drew it. And that's how Solar Racer came to me. So Solar Racer is pretty much an influence of everything that I love, and just put it together. And there it is.
Yeah, it was pretty much the same experience for me when I created Codename Hunter. I was obviously using James Bond as one of the influences. A little bit of Star Wars, a lot of Star Trek. But I was also a fan of the Jim Steranko's Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's a good.
So that was another influence. Yeah, so Enrique, when I actually talked to you about one of the pages, I said your inking style for this reminds me of Jim Steranko's inking for Nick Fury. It was just like it's like a spiritual sequel, if you will, to that series.
No, I remember you were telling me that. Well, you remember saying that to me. I was like, "What?" Must be a little too much today or something.
Well, that's how great I think your inking for this book is.
You're biased, man. Thank you. You know what? I didn't want to interrupt Eric's story because you know me. I love when I hear certain things. I immediately things come to my mind. And he was saying that I found this suitcase under my dad's bed, and of course,
That was a gun, huh? Or something else.
Yeah,
I would bet so. And it's like, and I remember because I had a little suitcase under my bed when I was like that. It was not for comics. It was not for comics. Sorry, Ma. It wasn't for. So anyway, so I was going like, I can't say that. I'm going to interrupt the story. I got to get going. Let him have his moment. Let him have his moment. It's funny because I can tell the difference of generations because he's talking about his first encounter with Superman was the famous Death of Superman line storyline. The second, his Batman introduction was the fall of the night, the Nightfall.
Yeah.
And I go all the way back to when my collections are enjoying Roy Thomas's and John Buscema doing Conan. Len Wein and Bernie Wright's on the Swamp Thing. Claremont and Byrne working in X-Men. That's where I get all my stuff.
Yeah.
Mike Grell creating the Warlord for the first time. What else can I bring up? Stories that always fascinated me were like Michael Fletcher doing the Jonah Hex, the Phantom Stranger. That's a series that was such great stuff. That guy, and some of the things they lose. You don't see them anymore, and I don't think people really understand how incredible it was when we had them back then. Because, the serialization of the books are great, but I used to have asthma a lot as a kid, and I would be sick a lot. So my parents, and then they would give me these horrible medicines and stuff, and I would be like missing school for like 15, 20 days a year and stuff. So my parents once in a while would say, "Look, if you drink the medicine, we'll give you a comic book." Oh, okay, well. So, and they were these fake. I remember they were like 100 pages was like the big deal, giant pages, and you would get these stories and they were just that. You would get that one story and go on to the next thing. Would there be stuff that move down the line? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff from Batman will move down the line and stuff. But the fact was that you could go and to any, because before you couldn't go to a shop, you would go to your pharmacy. And I remember back here, there was this place in Queens that I knew every Wednesday they would get their stuff, and I would be like, first thing, beeline down there, because once the school got out, everybody got out, it would be like gone, and you just never knew. And that was the time that you was not like, give me your order or something like that. No. It was like, what is coming in today? You had no idea. You had no idea. And that was just one of those great times. That was in the 70s. Now, I stopped reading comic books for a while after at some moment, because I wanted to be the next Stephen King. So I started doing a lot more prose, a lot more working on short stories, poetry and stuff to develop my writing skills versus just my illustration part.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got back to college that I actually got back into the stories, because my brother was telling me, haven't you been reading this thing called The Watchmen? I'm like, what?
Oh, shoot. Oh, boy.
And he was, because he was younger than me, he was really into it. So I read that, and I'm like, this is really heavy stuff. And from there, obviously, we jumped into Dark Knight Returns, and then I went back to comic books again. Started following the Captain America line again, and then Mike Grell started doing the Longbow Hunters, which one was the biggest deal when it was like prestige format. It was like the special deluxe versions of stuff. But the Killing Joke was one of the first ones that came out that way. Hello, and I still got some of those formats in my collection here, like the Batman, Nothing But Gaslight. And so I know what it's like to get back to that. When you're saying that Spawn was his first real comic book, it's just you're good at the money. So that's where you get all the image stuff going on, all stuff. So so for a lot of people, that was their first major boom into the comic. It was when the guys decided to move out. I mean, basically, when the big guy, those guys, Silvestri, Lee, McFarlane, got into Marvel, and they did all that explosion in there, that's when a lot of people got introduced to comics again. So they went on their own way. Then you saw the independent market also have that big boom again, and then we had all the craziness that led to the destruction of the society as we knew it, with the people buying multiple copies of everything. And
You can sell it. Yeah, to pay the college tuition.
But nowadays, we don't do that anymore. All we do now is slap it, because why would we want to read something? Really? Why would we?
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny, because you see that a lot, and I'm like, I feel kind of sad. It's like, look, it's really graded, and like, I remember I believe I still have it in my collection. There used to be this distributor called Mile High Comics back in the 80s, right? And they, at one time, found this treasure trove of really pristine comics somebody had in an attic or somewhere, and they had it was called the Mile High Collection.
Yeah.
And I got one of the House of Mysteries by Bernie Wrightson done with it, and I even got a certificate saying that, to their knowledge, this is the most pristine copy ever existing of that moment. So there's no grading. It's like 9.6. Maybe this was a 9.9 today at that moment, But the whole idea of that, I mean, I know people like that concept. Maybe I'm just an old guy. I'm like, get off my lawn kind of deal. I just don't get it. I really just don't get it. The whole idea of a slab, and besides the fact that they occupy so much space, it's like they take up so much more space than what you have in a regular comic. They take like 2 or 3 more comics could fit in that same spot. And I'm like, but hey, if anybody ever wants to, what you call it, a slab, one of my books, hey, you never know. We could have my first review there with Codename Hunter #3, that cover coming out soon.
Maybe
Well, maybe it'll be my day for a Soul Eraser. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Definitely.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. Okay. Let's talk about what our hopes are going forward for our series. Let's start with you, Eric. How long do you think this series could go on?
Well, I've already sort of mapped it out. It's going to be a while. Yeah, it's a long continuing series. There is an end. Haven't gotten there yet, but there is an end to Soul Racer. You know, but what he has to go through, it's a lot. So I mean, there's plenty of story, but there is a point where his that series will end. Probably, maybe I could hand it off to who knows Enrique, and he could continue a new Solar Racer chapter or story with a different character, but
Yeah.
so it's open to many possibilities, definitely. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Enrique, would you be up for actually writing a story for Soul Racer or Codename Hunter for that matter?
Yeah, man. Why not? It's like if it's since I'm part of the group, might as well throw my hat in there. So it's all good. It's all good. No, absolutely. I would think it was great. I I always think it's interesting to have somebody else come in and play with the toys once in a while.
Yeah. Yes.
That's what I wish they would do for the big guns. I wish they would stop some of the crap they're doing and just do things like what they did with Sean Murphy and the White Knight miniseries. That's outside the continuity of the regular stuff. They should do that with all their characters. So just like, let's give it to this team this few months and see what they can do, and not worry about continuity.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It can like almost like anthologies, like
yes.
Some of the coolest stuff out there. There were graphic novels that came out years ago. They're not graphic, trade paperbacks. Like when they had what if Stan Lee wrote DC Comics and they had him do his version of Wonder Woman, Batman, I think, for some time, and how he would have done maybe back then. And I'm thinking that you could probably do that now with these characters. Just to give those characters a different voice. Not to saying about Tom King, Scott Snyder, and everybody else who writes it. They have their own things. So people already know through what they've written of these characters, their own views, their own lines, or what they've decided to do for those characters. But maybe if you give it to like somebody like me, for example, or anybody other writer, what would their take be on these characters? What would they do with those? Given free reign, given the total like no restrictions, like let's just see what happens.
Right.
And that's one of the cool things that Marvel did for a while with the what ifs. Those what ifs were that. Let's give these guys what if this happened,
Right.
Take the fandom. That would be like fandom fantasy, like because we would do that, well, if I was doing it, I would do it this way. What would happen if this happened? What if the hammer wasn't in Thor's hand and was in somebody else's? A lot of the stories were really, really cool. Sometimes they would do Marvel team up, and we have these totally off the wall combinations. Like, what was it? I think Spider-Man and Deathlock once. I'm going like, what? How did that happen? Stuff like that. So, I just wish we could go back to that and let more people do it. But at the same time, screw them. We're doing our own thing here. If they can't think about it, we'll just beat them to their own game. And that's why we're talking about how the independents now we're just when you guys were thinking about, well, if we can't make it with the big guns, let's do it ourselves. Yeah, because right now the tools to do this successfully exist. Started nothing. It was just the big two, and and maybe there was a bit. I think First was around, and a few other stuff were going around. The Ninja Turtles were just starting off, so
Yeah.
so it wasn't a lot of options for me. It got a little bigger later, a little moving towards the late and early '90s. There were a few like you had Continuity coming out, Valiant's coming out, First Comics was coming out, so there were starting to be more options, but still they were with the same mentality. But nowadays, it's like I go to conventions and people tell me, "Oh man, I wish I could do this book. Or I wish I could get my stuff out there." It's like, why aren't you doing it? Crowdfunding is available. There's new ones all the time. Like Backer Kit now is doing their own crowdfunding thing. Crowdfunder's another one. You got Indiegogo, you got Kickstarter. The options are there. You don't want to do that? Go webcomics.
Yeah.
You do that with your Batman 66 and Godzilla. I mean, in that way as well, and
That's great.
Batman Returns sequels. So you can do that. It's like the only thing that's it's really hindering anybody today is your imagination and your desire.
Yeah.
Ian beat me. I have yet to do an imaginative like Batman.
Yeah. Well, you have to
I
understand.
haven't even touched any of those characters. But I haven't.
I have actually, when I got back into this in 2018, I wrote a story using a Star Wars character which was not of the main line, and I talked to somebody from Germany to do the work with me, and then we came into a discussion because he felt that my inks were overtaking his artwork. I'm like, really?
Oh.
I'm like, okay. So, I'm like, all right. So, and I was telling you, it's not the purpose. Like, yeah, man, but I don't see myself in there. Well, I'm sorry. All better. Anyway, but the point is that the story was there that I'm still to this day, I think maybe I should put it out there. But then again, you got to pick and choose. Now, I got all this stuff going now. I'm doing all these anthologies. So if I want to do that, I'm going to stop that. And so I was like, so that one gets put back in the burner because at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not getting paid for that. That's not going to be used. That's not going, but it's a story that I came up with immediately. And I was thinking this would be the perfect what if for Star Wars. And it's one of those things that I thought, if they ever made a what if for Star Wars, this would be a great story to put in there. And and the whole idea is that the opportunity would be to do that on your own, because it's like as long as you're not selling it, you can pretty much put anything out there. But we'll see. I mean, it's like I'm still fairly young, so you never know.
Yes, you are.
You're young. Stop
I
it.
get a chance to do that eventually, but yeah, it's it really is the opportunities out there. I mean, it's like, and I was at this convention last weekend, the Garden State, and I'm looking at these guys from the Kubert School, guys and gals, and I had to go over to Fernando Ruiz and I said, like, bro, you guys are doing a heck of a job with these kids, because it's like, the level I'm seeing is like I was telling Keith, you know what? I hate them already. They're already bettering us, and they're just starting. I hate them. I hate them all right now.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, actually, we're not. Actually, they're really cool people, and I approached one of them actually already to say, look, man, I got this thing coming up. Would you be interested? He's about it. He wants to see, what? Because he's already one of them is already published. I'm like. So I'm like, who do you know? Who do you know? No, because it's like, no. So I mean, somebody was telling me, somebody did a podcast. They interviewed me at the show, and then he was like, after he was done, he was like, well, they should help you with your competition. We're like, what competition? Oh, there's always competition. They're like, it's totally, yeah, there is competition in the sense of I am competing with everybody for the same dollar, but it's not competition like I got to be better than you, better than you, better than you.
Yeah.
No, it's not like that. Uh, overall, this community is really good. I mean, overall, I
Yeah.
mean, there are some flakes and there are some a-holes out there. So I won't say it's perfect, but majority of the people, we like to work with each other. We like to help each other.
Yeah.
And you will meet the kindest people out there. You know, it's like really simple. I mean, with you guys, it could have been really simple. I'm like, who's this old guy? Why is he talking to us? You know, and you're like cool about it. You know, so I'm like glad about that. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. We respect you. We respect a lot of the other professionals of the community, because you've earned a right to to be part of this community. You've earned this right. So, yeah, we respect you, and we also like you. We like your work. So why wouldn't we want to work with you? Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, of course.
it was funny because these kids would come over to us. When I mean us was like Keith Williams and I, and they were like starstruck. And like, what's your problem? Like, man, you guys, you've been doing this for a while. And I'm like, look, he's been doing it for a while. All right.
Yeah.
I'm as old as he is. All right. And he was like, what are you talking about? It's like, he's the legend. I'm the wannabe. So it's all fun and games. So, no, it's like, honestly, I said it like I told my wife, you know, who was my biggest supporter in all this. Could I, she says, could you walk away today if you wanted to? I say, I probably could, in the sense that I feel that I've done some of the stuff I've wanted, you know, in the short amount of time. I'm already been on, I already have covers, books, comics. I'm on comic book covers. They're actually been printed. Right. So it's like actually done. I've been published a bunch of times. I've been to every major convention there could be, except San Diego. So it's like,
that's the big one right there.
right. I'm like, yeah, I've done in a very short amount of time a lot of stuff. So I've actually been there. But I'm now still looking for those next steps. And the next step is starting with the next anthology I'm doing. In that this anthology is being done with it's called Might, Magic, and Mother-in-Laws, Monsters-in-Laws, not mothers-in-laws, Monsters-in-Laws. And it's a fantasy, funny kind of thing. And Alan Bay is running it. And for the first time ever, I'm going to produce a story in which I'm not only writing it. I'm not going to do anything else. I got a good friend of mine doing everything else with it. And Joe Critelli. That these are characters I created in the 1980s. For the first time, my universe is actually going to be published. That's the one thing I'm missing. So it's going to be an anthology because the whole idea is that I'm going to do a series of 4 or 5 stories, which will be taking place in different timelines of the universe, and I'll be spreading them around. And this first one is going to be in this one. The second one, I'm looking to maybe include them in the Elseworlds anthology that's coming out from these guys over here in New Jersey. If I can get, because the artist I wanted to do it with had to bail out, and now I'm looking for a replacement, which I addressed somebody with it. But that'll be the story that'll launch the actual main character of that universe series. And then hopefully we get these 5 stories will be done into a compendium, like anthology on its own, which all 5 stories, before I launch the actual first issue of that line, which is looking at timeline wise, will probably be in 2024 and the way it's going. And originally I wanted Perez to do the introduction. I wanted George to be the beginning, the first few pages of it, hopefully get him out of retirement. But as we all know, George has passed on to the comic book heaven, along with a bunch of guys lately. And Neil Adams, we lost Neil Adams, we lost Tim Sale. We lost somebody also as well. So it's been like one after the other for a while. So, but George George's one we knew already. We knew it was coming. But Neil was kind of out of the blue as well. And
Yeah.
Tim was young too, but he hit his issues, from what I understand. And that's why he kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, because we weren't expecting it. Like, wow,
Was he able to recuperate all his stuff that he lost? There was a incident that he lost some of his artwork. I think he was in a taxi, and I don't know if
Yeah.
it's a sick story, but he lost some artwork, and he was posting on a newspaper if anyone found my artwork or something.
Yeah, I think that was actually. I think part of that was recovered. I can't be certain, but I do remember seeing that ad. I was like, "Wow!" I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, the Batman written by Danny O'Neill and Neil Adams. That was intense. That was
Yeah. This came at a time when DC was just looking to, bring the character back to its darker roots
Oh, God,
because,
that was wow.
because the 60 show was over and that went out like a light, like this.
Yeah.
So those two, uh, going back to the roots, going back to what Bob Kane and Bill Finger did, it was a smart decision to make, which led to Frank Miller coming on to do his Dark Knight stories and all these other darker stories from DC. So that's where you really start with Dennis O'Neill, but more importantly, Neil Adams. And he had these crazy page
Oh
layouts.
God. Yes.
Yeah,
I love his work in Dead Man. Oh,
that where it was a great.
what I like from Neil Adams was the fact that he forced the reader to actually use their eyes. Like he would just every panel was just like different.
Oh
It was
yeah,
just like
yeah,
he controlled the reader's eye. That was his goal, to control the reader's eye, left and right, right and left. But the way he did it was just wow.
yeah.
Fantastic.
It was crazy. I actually met Neil once at a comic book signing. It was for Batman Odyssey. It was the first issue, and it's cool meeting one of your comic heroes. It's very cool. So he signs the book and he says to me, "What is Ra's al Ghul's henchman, his second in command?" So as a pure Batman fan, I said, "Ubu." And he's like, "You know your comic books. You know your comic books." I was like, "Yeah, of course." I didn't say this a lot. I said, "Yeah, of course I gotta know because you created the character. Created the character, Neil."
Yeah.
Yeah. But he had a good big laugh about it, and every once in a while I would see him at a convention, just sitting, sketching away, which is something that we all do in comic book artists. We all sketch away, whether it's commissions or just sketching in our books.
I when someone once asked him, "What's your style?" or "What do you think of styles?" He said, "Styles, art style. You mean?" He's like, "Yeah, art styles are just another way to cheat from like anatomy. It's fake anatomy, but it's a must to tell a story. But you know, it's like when he said that, I'm like, wow, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't believe in styles, but styles it's good for the type of story you're telling. So.
I met Neil at New York Comic Con a few years ago, and yeah, it was very gracious. He signed one of his prints and all that kind of stuff for me and stuff. But I was like, no way I was going to give him my sketchbook or anything to look at. There was no way I was going to do that.
Oh no.
There's no way I was not even do that.
They'll turn me into that's for sure.
Those were like
over and over again.
Now, Neil was very notorious for just picking apart, your artwork.
It was.
I dodged a, yeah,
Oh, you didn't show me your sketchbook.
yeah.
No, heck no. But it was funny that when somebody asked me to do a test of my inkings to see if we mesh for a project, this was like one of the first things I did when I came back. And he sent me this really Eric and now this type of page. It means it was filled with a lot of stuff in them everywhere. It was like everywhere was filled.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of details, So I'm working in it, and I did it. And what I imagined was a great job, and I sent it to the writer, and he looked at it. He says, "Oh man, no." I said, "What? You use brush?" I mean, what do you mean I use brush? Yeah, I use brush in certain things, and no, I don't like artists who use brush. I prefer micron work. I go, really? And this is where it went interesting. Go like, you know what? This looks like Neil Adams. So no, I don't want that. Well, I said, okay, you don't want Neil Adams?
Wow.
Really?
Wow. Oh.
First of all, I took a great.
No. Oh no.
I took it as a great praise, and I'm like, wow. But it is. When I looked at it again, look at because the way I did it for the backgrounds, I did microns for distance, but for the characters, I wanted to give it that look. So I did everything was in brush. Everything was in brush, and it did have a little bit of that Neil movement and stuff. So I was like, it was unintentional. But whenever you read about me, one of the first things I tell people, what are my influences? Neil Adams, Bernie Wrightson. Those are the two guys.
Yeah.
You know, Neil for his way of flow, and Bernie for his details. You know, nobody else could do anything but like it's. He would like 2 lines by Bernie was better than people's whole pages. You know, it's like even to. And I still look at his stuff. I'm going like, and one of the things I tell young kids and everybody who wants to work as an inker. And I've done it. I've done this a lot of times myself. I will take a page from somebody I really admire, like for example, I'll do a Mike Zeck or Walt Simonson and stuff in a Bernie, blue line it and go over it, even though it's been inked already. Why? Yeah. Because that will teach my hand to make the move that needs to be done to get to that point. Yes. Will I be able to do it as well as them? Probably not. But at least I'll know how to cheat it. They'll know how to get to the point that if I want to try that, what does my hand have to do? Because a lot of times you look at stuff and go like, how is that achieved? And you go like, oh, wait a minute, I can do it this way. Oh no, that's not going to work. A lot of times I get frustrated because I was telling Keith the other day, you know, when I take away the blue line on some of these things, my inks look really thin. And so maybe I have to use bigger pens or something. I'm like, he goes like, it depends on. He tells me you got to be careful how you scan these things because sometimes they go really too. You got to go add a little more black later and stuff. Yeah. Like, okay, but so it's making me a lot more aware of certain things that I'm not like this stuff. Let me see. Today I was working on something. Let me see where it is. Then I said, okay, I'm going to do brush of the character, and then I'm going to do microns in the back. So I did that. This is where I was.
Yeah. Wow.
See, she is brush. She's brush, and everything else in the back is in the micron to give it the distance. So, I wanted to give her that like nihilistic kind of look. So, there's a lot of brush work in there. So,
let's talk about George Perez a bit more for a second. It was incredible the amount of work he also did. I mean, doing Crisis on Infinite Earths, you know, Wonder Woman, the Teen Titans, and of course the Avengers. It was just
missing a main one. For me, my favorite. All those are important, but for me, his Wonder Woman run was like.
Oh, he was built for that, yeah.
Yeah, he was built for that paving. You know, he was. I mean, you look at the movies, and that's basically his work from there. You know, you can tell where, especially the Amazon and all that kind of stuff. That was him. You know, it absolutely was all his influence in there. I'm very lucky to meet George finally at East Coast Comics in 2019. Yeah, 2019. And I remember I was working the tables. I was doing the convention. I just had no chance because his line was always packed. You know, and I wanted to give him something. There was these Sojourn pages he posted on his webpage once that he never had inked. They were only pencils. So I decided to do one of the pages in full inks, the full inks, and actually have them. I'm looking at them right now. So I did the inks, then I took out the blue line and did a really nice print and dedicated to him, and I put it in a frame. And it wasn't until Sunday night that the handler gave me a break because he was like, "Wait a minute, this guy wants to give something to George instead of taking to him." So we had the opportunity to sit down with him for and it was funny to see his eyes go big when he sees it. Oh my God, this has never been inked. This is fantastic. Fantastic. And so I have a picture with him and everything of signing it and the moment that we're together with it. So, and to think that a few years later he's gone, because I remember he was doing a tour because that was going to be like his last time doing it around. Then COVID hit, that it even hampered it even more. Because he was going to do another Dragon Con, he never got to it.
Oh man,
Got to it. Now that's a rough convention. That's a 5-day one. I mean,
that's 5 days. Wow.
Oh boy.
Thursday through Monday. Thursday through Monday. I mean, and from what I've been told, it's not even in the same hotel. They're like spread out everywhere. So you got, if you're like more indie and stuff, they'll have you in a certain area. You're more mainstream, they'll have you in another area. If you're more manga, you're in another area. So it's like all over the place. From what I've been told. So it's one of those weird ones. I'm like, we can pass the number for now.
Exactly.
I mean, I have enough with the ones I'm doing. I'm already planning next year. Ready, because I'm already got confirmations for my next year that I'm doing. I know that for the big ones next year, Terrificon, Heroes, because I'm back at Heroes after this year. They want me back. I'll be back at Heroes, and I'm going to be back for my biannual. I do it every 2 years at the Cincinnati Comic Expo. I'll be back.
Very nice. Very nice.
It's a week for next year, so
yeah.
All right. Then of course we also have to talk about Tim Sale. For obviously for those of you who have followed Tim's work for a number of years, he has done a series of Batman books such as Haunted Night, Long Halloween, Dark Victory. He's also done Marvel stuff, Superman Blue. I'm sorry, Spider-Man Blue. I apologize. I dropped the ball. Spider-Man Blue, Daredevil Yellow, Hulk Gray.
My favorite is Wolverine Gambit.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
Yeah, that was good.
He signed those for me. Actually, I have those. Those issues were signed by him in, I think it was 2018 in New York. So,
wow,
I got him to sign those.
Very nice. Oh, I also forgot Superman All Seasons. So he did do a Superman book. Actually, he did two. Superman, I think, Kryptonite. Yeah. It's always exciting. It was always exciting seeing Tim's work because it was so different, so unique, especially when he did his Batman books, because he used a lot of blacks. And we just lost Enrique for a second. Anyway.
No, I have these out here. Yeah, these are his sketchbooks from that year. So let me see what you were talking about. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Gorgeous blacks. Very gorgeous blacks.
Blacks,
yeah. It's a very painted style.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at that shit.
Yeah. Fantastic. Also, his detail to the buildings.
Yeah. This is details. So let's look at details here. Look at that.
Yeah. Look at that, the brushwork. Look at the line art, especially for the bricks. They're individual bricks.
Yeah.
With the white cement pigments.
Yeah.
No, nothing stuck together. So
we're not worthy.
It's sick.
Yeah. But this is the thing. Tim's style was not of the normal. He was definitely one of those unique artists where you're like, you don't have to be the normal. I don't have to mimic somebody else. I could just be me. And that's very important for those who actually want to get in the business, in this comic book business. You have to be you. All right. It's very nice, to be inspired by somebody else's work. You know, no problem with that. But you, in the end of the day, you have to be you. Look at that. Look at that Daredevil. Look at that. Yeah.
So it's so cinematic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. That's the thing about these three guys that we're talking about. There's never gonna be anyone like them ever again
Mhm. You can
because
be
that
inspired
would
by
just
them, but
yeah, you can be inspired by them. I mean, all three of us have been inspired by these guys individually,
mhm.
but at the end of the day, we have to be us. We have to be us.
I remember there was this there's this Tales of the Crypt story that I read. It was called "Taint the Meat." It's the humanity.
Oh yes.
Oh, until this day, that story still haunts me. And well, it's about a guy who tries to cheat, making more profit by selling, rotten meat or spoiled meat. And so he comes home, and his wife is like seeing him panicking and scared. She's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" He's like, "Quick, pack your bag. We have to leave. We have to, you know, people are dying. They're dying." She's like, "They're dying because you gave them that spoiled meat. That horse meat." And then he's like, "Quickly, get Junior, get Junior." She was like, she's at, I forgot what's the family's called, but then he realized he sold meat to that family, and they ate that meat. So Junior comes home saying, "Mommy, I don't feel so well." So then you know what happens. He dies. The son dies.
Yeah. Then she comes after him with a knife.
Cuts
Yeah.
him
I've heard.
pieces, and that was wow.
Yeah.
So I mean, you don't see gore, you don't see slash and blood, but it's just the way it was told, the way it was drawn, it gives you chills.
Yeah.
So that
It
sort
does.
of storytelling is like, well, I'm still nowhere near that sort of level of storytelling,
Yeah.
That
but that's
that
something to strive
well,
for. Yeah, good.
that's one of the things I liked about Stephen King. That he once said that he lets the reader imagine it worse than what he could ever write.
Right, that's what. Yes,
Um,
that's what they did.
it's like
Yeah.
one of the there's a scene in Pet Cemetery when you read it when the baby is actually run over by the truck. He doesn't go into the details. He talks about
No.
a cap that's running down the the, the highway after the impact, and you fill in the blanks because it's never seen. He never writes it. The details. Your details are 100
Yeah.
times worse of what's going on. Um, so sometimes when I do my work, I try to put in things there that hint at other ways that people will like. Do you see what I'm seeing, or you're not seeing it? Or are you going to pick it up and let them wonder? When you do
Yeah.
graphic stuff like we do, it's hard to hide some of the stuff because you're visual. You're visual.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you got to do a little trick here and there to get the reader feel off. Feel off. So
Hmm.
Yeah. Not feel so normal. You're not quite sure what's gonna happen next. You thought this was horrific. You go down a couple of pages later. I'll show you what else is more horrific.
it's like the story I wrote about the takeout, which it's funny because I wrote it during COVID, and that's what all of us were doing was takeout for a
Yeah,
while.
that's crazy. Yeah.
And so the story's about the wolf who's trying to find some food and he can't find it. The three little pigs beat his ass back, and Bo Peep beat him up.
I gotta read that one. I gotta read
Until he gets to a farm, and there are a whole bunch of lambs out there, and things don't go the right way because that story was like we were doing not so fairy tales, so it's like it was based off the story of the wolf in sheep's clothing. The real
Mhm.
story if people know this lie, it's that he hides as a sheep, as a lamb actually, and sheep, well, actually a sheep. But then the farmer comes out at night because he's got hungry and decides, well, I'm going to eat one of my sheep, and he ends up eating the wolf. So the wolf gets killed in the actual fairy tale. Well, normally you don't hear those kind of things. Well, I took it literally, so mine goes all the way that way. So, except that it's a little different that he gets brought in, but who kills him is actually Mary because she's gone insane because they killed off her lamb at one time. So she ends up killing him at the end. So the story keeps going the same way. But the whole time you don't realize what's going on. It's all fairy tale. It's all written and in like Dr. Seuss. It's all really nice until she gives him some food and he falls asleep. And the things go really bad.
That's crazy.
So and that's the whole thing. It's like twisting it the way you're thinking what's going on. And then at the end, I'll smack you with something else. And
Yeah,
so because I think people are picking up on that. So now they're expecting it like I'm becoming the M. Night Shyamalan of writing of comics. They're like, oh, he's gonna have to spend expect it. So I gotta make them. So for the next story, they're coming up in the next few, they're all straight up. There's nothing, no hidden meaning, no crazy things. We're not gonna have something to bump you in the night of the end. So
it's like my one of my professors at School of Visual Art, Carl Potts. He did Alien Legion and Punisher.
Yeah.
He says, give the audience what they want, but not how they expect it.
Yeah.
That they'll receive it. Like give it that twist, and you'll see a huge difference. Huge difference. Sometimes it's not easy to do. It's hard.
No, it's not. But
you kind of really
the challenge. Yeah, that's the challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge, and but when I write, it's it's funny because it's very rare do I'll sit down and say I got to write a story for this, and it's usually I got an inspiration for something, then I'll put it away and say eventually I'll use this for something. That ending for that wolf story was actually an ending for another story that because I was using a character for another story in the anthology, I go like, no, I got to switch the character. Got to do somebody else. But for me, a lot of times I'll have the ending. The ending is already done. So I end up writing in reverse. How do I get there? How do I get to this point? So I'm writing in reverse. I'm writing back to the beginning to justify that ending. And then eventually I have to redraft everything here and there stuff. But a lot of times I already have the ending. For me, the ending is the key thing. The beginning, I can be tough because I'm trying to justify where I'm going. But every once in a while, there was some stories pop up immediately. There was another thing I proposed it to somebody, and for an anthology, it was not accepted. And I was upset because I thought, how can it be not accepted? And the editor explained it to me, saying, like, I don't know you. And you're asking me to, on just spec, to give you 10 pages of my anthology. And how do I know you're going to fulfill your promise? How do I know it's going to be good? How do I know you're going to be doing this stuff? Had you told me 2 pages, you would have been in because I like your ideas. But a 10 pager, no, I can't do that. So now that I know them, I wouldn't have the problem. But that's something I've been telling people that don't get into anthologies. Like, oh, I'm always rejecting. They're like, well, you're asking for the bigger number. If you don't know the guys or the people running, it's hard for them to trust you because let's face it, man. It's like even for Not So Fairy Tales, I had an artist who was going to work with me on Sociale Speculum who bailed on me and disappeared on me. And he's a well-recognized professional, done comics for DC Comics, created a bunch of characters, and he disappeared on me. Wow. And I ended up having to do it myself. And thankfully, it came out. For me, I'm very happy. People loved it because, like I say, the desperation is forced me to do weird things, and And like, I don't want to have to draw so many panels. So what I ended up was doing one pagers. And then by doing one pagers, I thought, well, this character's in a gauge. So I would do the pair with the panel bars, which actually like separating the panels, even though it's one image. And because he's having a conversation with a second character who's outside the cage, when you look at the panels of the page, you actually see that the character is outside the panels. So totally weird way of looking at the comics. People were reading it and were like, whoa, this is like, never seen anybody do something like this. You know, I was trying to get it nominated for the Ringo Awards. I don't know if he will or not because I know Ian helped me. But but it was one of those stories that out of necessity, it actually came out okay. So what I'm saying is that sometimes if you don't know the people you're proposing to, it's easier to go low. Like for example, I did one that is a 2-story one because I didn't know the person well enough, and it was like, yeah, automatically. My daughter wanted to do an anthology, and I told on her own, I go like, she said, but I don't know what I should do. It's like just propose a pin up. I'll bet you'll get in. She was in. So she got into I love robots, and I didn't. And I was like, damn. I did too big of a proposal. It was too big of a proposal. So, but I'll do that story someday. It's a cool story.
Yeah,
cool story. That'll be out there.
Yeah.
Would you that the superhero that I did for you? Would you ever continue?
That story. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting that. Eric and I already worked actually together in published work because we did the Hernandez. That was actually stupendous. And I gotta say, you know, Eric has his detailed stuff, but I remember when I sat down with him, I needed help with that one page, and we sat down. Yeah, 20 minutes. 20 minutes. He had it done. 20 minutes. It was almost all. It was all done. And I said, dude, how the hell you get this done so quickly? And he was like, you showed me your first 3 pages. You told me what you wanted. It's easy. It's easy when I know what I got to do.
Yeah. I felt so good doing those pages because Ricky basically was guiding me. And he was just, you know, and the more he guided me, the more I got it. I'm like, wow, I got it. Yes. Like it was, the images were coming to my.
Well,
head,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So that was funny because I would tell him, and I remember that when he presented it, I go like, oh, this one we're gonna flip it over this way because I was trying to make it so it looked like the character was being flung this way, but when it came down on the bottom, it would have to look another way. And he fixed it up, and then I added then in Photoshop I made another thing that I twisted it around to make everything work in the same direction.
Yeah.
But
that's how it is. Yeah. It's
it was done. And I was like, because I was against the clock. And I was like, oh my God. So I told him, you know what? Since you did that page, help me do the
other one. And I did it. Yeah. He guided me. So, you know.
So that was 2 pages in that one. And it was, I forgot about that. And it was like incredibly fast. And I was like, so I really appreciated it because he took, like, I mean, like I said, man, in 20 minutes, it was like, what? This is really good. And it was not like scratch things. These were details already. It was already there. All I had to do was I basically move the inking, add a few more things.
Yeah.
It was ready. It was not like little balloons here, little ovals. No. These were faces, everything in its place in 20 minutes. I was like, wow.
And then we got it done.
Look.
Well, I'm not too surprised because Eric does work like a madman.
Oh my God!
He works at a different level than I would normally work. Because I'm pretty fast, you know. But he goes way beyond with this, or it was speed. It was just crazy because I'm sitting there. He's done a whole page in, I'd say 35 minutes.
40.
I'm like,
Depends on.
Oh, 40. Okay. Okay.
Depends on the
50.
baby.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Well, I've sort of slowed down because since I'm working at another job, so
Yeah.
my free days would be actually Saturday afternoon, Sunday, and Monday, and then Tuesday I
Okay.
go back to my other job. So, which is why I've been posting artwork pretty slow. It takes time. It's not, something I can get done in like 20 minutes, like Jack Kirby. That'd be awesome to have this
Well,
time. Oh my god!
Jack
But
was on another level.
that's yeah. But yeah, it does take a lot of time, a lot of time and sorting it out, thinking about it, and just playing around and making sure everything's, makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, that's
that's a 20-minute page from this guy.
Yeah.
sheesh. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, and I remember that in this page here, yeah, it was the flip here. We had to change that. I think he was off angle, and then it goes like, since you did that one, this is the one I was talking about how we had to flip. The guy was moving the corner down to the other side. Yeah, because the whole
Okay.
idea was like he was being flung from this side, and it goes lands on that side, and has all this movement.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, he did change. Yeah, that's great.
so it was like, I still think I did total injustice to his
By the
work.
way, I have to mail you the originals. You got to give me your address.
Oh man, that'd be nice. I
Yeah.
mean, I really could have done a better job on this, but this is like my very first published work. It's like this is like my
I remember. Yeah.
I made them on this book. This one
Mhm.
here, an homage to the Batman movie.
Yeah.
And then that scene here, that is an homage to Art Adams.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
This is my Will Eisner page. We start the full one full action.
Oh yeah, I could definitely tell. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course I didn't want to do all the details in the back because I'm too lazy. So, of course, that bottom ending was my George Schultz,
Yeah.
Charlie Brown, except he's not on the side; he's in the front. So it's like, ow.
Yeah.
And I got away with it because being a children's book, they didn't want me to write anything in flowery language. So the what the fuck here is actually in reverse. So So what I liked about it is that one of the concept I thought is that how do I create movement? Well, if you want to read what was being said upside down, you have to do this. So automatically, by reading the whole thing, you're actually giving me the effect that I wanted you to feel of him tumbling. So you're reading this, and going, "What you doing?" Oh, okay. And now you go back. So you actually
Right.
feel the movement.
That's magic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
And this is how can I not like a drawing of my ink by the Keith Williams? What?
Of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
So I mean, like I said, I've had a few milestones.
His art is awesome.
So
Yeah, his art is awesome.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, guys, I think we come to the end of the episode. Just really wrap up. Enrique, what are your next convention appearances?
next week we are not going to San Diego. Look, I have buddies of mine who are going to San Diego. All right? And all you get is a 3-foot table. That's it. That's all it is. San Diego. When Artist Alley, you get 3 feet and you share it with somebody else. That's it. I mean, it's great. It's great. But he could have been at the show I'm doing is Gem City Comic Con in Dayton, Ohio. I'm going to have 2 L-shaped corner because I'm a guest. So I'm going to be full corner. That's my next show. After that, I'm taking a hiatus for August because somehow I figured out that I actually have to do some work. And I got to finish Hernandez number 4. It's got to be done by August 30th. I got to hand in a script for Not So Fair Tales by August 31st. And then in September, I'm doing ZapCon, and then I'll be in Massachusetts for the first time in the convention. I'll be doing the which one am I doing over there? The Super Mega Fest up there. And then we're still waiting on New York. I've already been told no, but hey, you never know. Last year I got in later, so it may happen. I mean,
wait, was it because it was full already, or you had to do it earlier?
well, New York is like you get chosen, and I was not this year. Last year, this year I wasn't. But it's funny, like Chicago, I didn't get in C2E2, and this week they sent me a note saying, "Oh, you're in now."
Oh,
Great, but there are no hotels.
Oh man!
So I mean, it's like right now I can't go. So I'm like, oh, thanks, but no. So what I'm going to do next? So what I'm doing next year is that if I decide to do C2E2, I want to try it, and even if I don't get in, I'm buying the hotel. So if I get in, okay, we're good.
You're good. You already have it. Yeah, you're set.
Because I had that already, I would have gone. You know,
yeah, definitely.
The wife was ready to go. We were all ready to go. No, I can't get anything now.
That's right.
But so in New York, I'm waiting for the same thing to see if they give me a chance this year or not. But it's like, I mean, I was complaining. I was at Garden State. I was complaining to Keith. Man, I don't know. It's just weird, you know how it is. And a buddy of mine, Chris Williams. Now this guy is super talented. Chris Williams, C-Dub. He has this guy, Jake, who does the inkings for him. You guy is wow. Incredible. To the point that Chris says, you gotta really be really good to make me stop using this guy. Though Chris has been nice every once in a while, he's saying, you're getting better, you're getting closer. But Jake is getting better. But the point is that Chris was like to me, he says, look, man, I don't want to hear you complaining anymore. At least you've done it. I could have sworn he was there last year. And he was not. He says, I've been trying for 7 years. I've never gotten in.
Wow.
You know, people who've been trying for 12 years have never gotten into Artist Alley.
That's insane.
To give you an idea, I got in last year, and people assume automatically I'm there this year. That I had, I'm not going to say his name, a former Ringo Award-winning writer, former Marvel artist, asking me for a foot of my table because he didn't get in. I didn't get in there. I have no table to give you, but I would if I were in there.
Oh boy!
Former artists that are not in. Former BT artists that are not in. So for me to be said, you're not in, well, I kind of look.
Yeah. Kind of made you, made you feel.
So for me, I mean, New York was always the holy grail for me. Was always the holy grail. And last year I got into every single Reed Pop show. Emerald City, C2, Florida, and this one in New York. And so for me, I was like, I've done it. You know, I thought it would take me more years to get into New York, and to know that I've done it once. It's like the attitude that Chris had with me is something I tell people. You can never take. There's no asterisk. The year that I got in, it's not like, oh, he hit home runs during the steroid era. No, he got in because it was COVID. No, it says New York. It doesn't say in COVID era. No,
exactly.
Which shows that you got New York Comic Con.
Yeah, right.
They can never take it away. They can never take it away. So
that's right.
The only major show I have never done, when you consider major is the San Diego one. The only one I'm missing right now. I've done Heroes, Baltimore, Terrificon. Terrificon's not really major, but it's pretty big for this area. But the ones I consider big are Heroes, Baltimore, New York, and San Diego, and of course Emerald City as well as all the Reed Pop stuff. So I've been lucky. I mean, I've been lucky, and
we're happy for you. Definitely, that's great achievement. Wonderful.
That is.
Yes.
But anyway, next week I'm in Gem City in Dayton, Ohio. Then, so I'll be there. I'm heading out on the road probably on Thursday. Okay. So, and Ohio treats me great. I mean, Ohio, there are great fans down there, and and I'm looking forward to another good year. Last year I did there really good. It was great. Last year I was there in 3 occasions. I did Cincinnati, Dayton, and Akron. This year I'm only doing Dayton and Akron. So
Yes.
trying to hold on. Cincinnati was just too much.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for coming on the show. We had a lot of fun. I can't wait to actually see you guys in person at a convention just to share a table or just to hang out and talk because it's been way, way, way too long.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
do.
been a
Yeah.
while, especially with Eric, because I haven't seen Eric in the flesh since 20. Did we do it in 2021, New York?
The Apple Con?
No, did we? No, or was it when 2019?
It was 2019. It was WinterCon.
Yeah, Winter Con. Winter.
2019. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw you, Ian, at another show.
Yeah.
At one moment during the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
So
Eric,
hopefully,
he
yeah.
never showed. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you let me down, Eric, just that one time.
Just that one
time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I will never.
Like, yeah, Eric, and he was like, "Well, man, we're gonna be next to each other. Eric's coming." I'm all, "That's great." Where's Eric? I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
I remember that.
Mhm.
Okay. For next week, I will not be doing an episode. I will be doing an episode on the 23rd with a very special guest. I'll tell you about that during the week. This has been a fun experience. Thank you, guys, once again. Eric Hernandez and Enrique Lopez, the team members and the crew of Triple Threat Comics. I'm your host, Ian Miller, of the Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel, and you guys have a great Saturday night.
Thank you. Take care. Be well. All right.
Yeah.